Hello class, this is example number 3 that involves the time value of money. So we have a situation with Madison Wholesalers. They enter into a contract with a customer to sell a product for $200,000. So Madison is selling to the customer a product for $200,000. The product will be delivered in 2 years, so that's into the future, but the customer pays for it today. So essentially, the customer is loaning MW $200,000 in addition to the buying the product. So based on these credit characteristics, we estimate the interest rate is 5% annually. So the revenue recognition guidance requires us to assess any financing, whether we're receiving or giving financing, to see if it is significant to our contract and see if the financing component is significant. If so, it must be accounted for in your revenue recognition process. So that's the first question here is this significant? While FASB did not want to set a bright line as to when something is significant, they left it to accountants' judgment. Generally, if we look to past interpretation of financing issues, anything that was more than 1 year would have been considered significant. Now, that's not necessarily in the rules, but that's some guidance, kind of a gray area around 1 year. If it's significantly less than 1 year, you probably can consider the financing to not be something we need to worry about and apply the time value of money. And if it's significantly over a year, then it's probably most likely that you need to apply time value of money or interest to calculate the total amount of revenue. So in this case, we have 2 years. That's probably significant. It's more than a year by quite a bit, and our interest rate is significant. So therefore, we're going to move forward to look at how this would play out in terms of the time value of money. So how would we record the journal entries when we get the $200,000 and again through the 2-year time period? So we go to Excel, and I've got some journal entries laid out for you. When we receive the $200,000, we debit cash and credit unearned revenue. We would expect that. That's not unusual. But then as time goes by, after a year, we would have interest expense, not interest revenue, because we're actually, as MW, borrowing the money or getting the money early before we've delivered the product. So that's $10,000 interest expense. That adds to our unearned revenue. The next year, we do the same thing except for more, because now the amount that we owe is the $210,000, not just the $200,000. So each year, the amount that we owe is growing. So for this year, the interest expense is $10,500, unearned revenue $10,500. So what we've done is we've recognized revenue that takes into consideration the interest for those 2 years that we had the money from our customer, when we really weren't entitled to it because we hadn't completed the revenue earning process. Then when we reach 2 years, assuming we fulfill our contract, deliver the product, then our unearned revenue would be debited for the full $220,500, and we would credit revenue for $220,500. That would be in the year of delivery. So you see that we have a revenue and an expense. That's important to remember because those are in different time periods. This expense would be in year 1, year 2, and depending on the timing exactly, this could be in year 2 or even into the beginning of year 3, depending on when we complete it. And therefore there's a matching issue in terms of the timing there that has to be considered. So this is how the GAAP requires us to deal with the time value of money. Whenever we have a significant amount of interest involved in the financing, either we receive financing or give financing, then it needs to be recorded separately from the revenue as according to is an expense in this case, and then it changes the amount of actual revenue. If we would have been giving financing, our amount of revenue in this case would be lower than the $200,000. So if it had been just the opposite, we'd have delivered the product now and got them to pay us $200,000 in 2 years, it would have been backwards. We would have recorded interest revenue each year, and then at the end our actual revenue for sales would have been lower than the $200,000.